name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So as we told you last week where we're going tonight, well, this was last week. Tonight is the practical application of what we learned, as well as we have video. As I said, we have questions that many of you submitted, and they're awesome. And we'll have some discussion. So the way I'd like tonight to work is Dino's going to review last week in a couple of slides, just so that anybody who missed can get caught up to speed. And then also we can just continue to nail this home with where we're going. So we have a baseline knowledge and a baseline understanding, so we're on the same page. And then next week's is going to be kind of a culmination of all we've been talking about, a lot from the first class, and that end goal, having the end in mind with God's vision of marriage. So, that's going to be Dino. I am going to Skype my wife in. Hopefully we have no connection problems. And we're going to share our story, and then we'll get to the videos. So, Dino.
So this isn't really a review. Is it off again now? It's on now. Did you just turn it off on me? Okay. We'll see if maybe the battery's going low or something. I'm going to give just a couple minutes of review. Yeah.
Try the third mic.
We'll see how the battery goes. Okay, how's that? Is that better? Is that all right? Okay. Or I could just talk loud enough for everyone to hear. So I'm not going to review everything we did last week, because we did a lot last week, didn't we? It was a lot of ground. We covered a lot, especially on the different meanings of love in the New Testament. Did they go off again? Batteries are apparently these. Okay, how about that? Whoa, that's not. So what I want to do, instead of rehashing all the things we talked about last week, I want to go briefly through some of the salient points about courtship, because that's what a lot of the questions were about. Okay, how do we actually live this? And so I want to review some of these principles and give a couple of little other starting points for tonight. So if you missed last week entirely, you missed a lot of really good stuff. But at least you'll be caught up to speed enough to see where we're going tonight, I hope. So in the Catechism, and we'll look at that in a moment, but in the Catechism they use a term called honorable courtship. It's in the section of the Catechism on marriage, and it's on this section on freedom. So the freedom to marry, that people can be free and they make an act, they say, I do in marriage, right? So the notion of honorable courtship is seen in that light, that it's part of building up and preparing a person to be able to do that. And it looks different from dating, certainly. Here's some positive aspects of it, just in review. Honorable courtship encourages healthy relationships. We talked about one of the three meanings of love from the Greek of the New Testament, right? And if it's just Greek to you, think of it this way: love that is friendship, right? Love that is friendship. I think that's easy for most of us to understand. Authentic friendship, love. This can be between men and women, and between men and men, and between women and women, and be completely devoid of any sexual innuendo of any kind, etc., right? This is friendship in its truest understanding. Courtship encourages healthy relationships based on this philia love. It also encourages a degree of emotional detachment. I'll talk again about that in a moment. And then it also encourages chastity. It makes it easier to live chastity in the state before marriage. Here's the section in the Catechism where it's quoted at 1632. They're actually quoting from the Second Vatican Council. Again, here it is near the end that instruction should be given to young people. And then if you skip near the bottom there, maybe the fourth line, so that having learned the value of chastity, they'll be able at a suitable age to engage in honorable courtship and enter upon a marriage of their own. So courtship understood in the context of a young person leaving their family to court, right? A quote here that gives the proper understanding of this development of love that is supposed to happen in courtship, because it's also the development of love that happens within marriage. And this is from John Paul II's work, Love and Responsibility, where he defines love in a number of ways, but specifically this part here is helpful. It says, the greater the feeling of responsibility for the person, the more true love there is. So there's a building up of feeling of responsibility within courtship that there may not be present in what the world thinks of in terms of dating, right? You're two sort of free people doing your thing, having fun together. That would maybe be the modern understanding of dating, obviously in a caricature on some level. But when you look at courtship, it's going to look radically different because of this character, that there's a greater, an increase and a greater feeling of responsibility involved in it. So you really care for the other, so much so, for example, that the practice of chastity isn't just a list of don'ts, it's also it becomes a list of do's. I want to do this to promote the learning of the self-mastery of chastity for her because I love her, because I feel responsible for her, right? So this really does turn our relationships in the area of courtship into something very, very radically different from the idea that the world has for young people. Here's the list I gave last week for honorable courtship. Now, these are all things you have to work out. Here's the list of modern dating things, some items. You can read through those briefly. I'm not going to comment on them right now, because that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is how to live this list. So you see this? Kind of the difference here? Okay. A couple guidelines, and these are new pieces in addition to what I said last week. Something that's important to remember, that guidelines given for courtship, you can't find these in the Catechism listed exactly like this, but they're based on principles found in the Catechism, found in the wisdom of the church, found in the Bible, and so on. The guidelines that can be given, though, are guidelines, and the tricky thing is that with any moral guidelines, we have to figure out how to live them in our messy circumstances. So there's some clear, obvious circumstances where you can look at the situation and say, oh, well, if I do this, it's a sin. If I do this, it's not a sin. Right? But then in relationships, there's a whole bunch of things happening that we can have guidelines and principles we apply, and there's not going to always be a clear understanding of this particular decision or this particular way of acting and so on. Would this be sinful or not? Is this going to lead to a positive expression of love or not? And so on. So actually figuring out boundaries and all these things, these are messy, right? I'm not saying morality is in some way purely subjective, right? But to actually answer the question in your specific case, you have to think it out, right? That's why God gave you a brain. And other people give you guidance. So when and how, this is a really common question which we're going to hash out, I'm sure, a bit tonight in various different ways. I'm sorry I stole some pictures from the Facebook site. So those are actually some of you people, beautiful people. But the question when and how, how do you do this? When do you court? How do you ask? The question I got from several people, how do I ask a girl to court? She'll think I'm crazy, right? And maybe not talking about a woman that's here at the class necessarily, because everyone here probably will have an idea of what we're talking about. But as a general rule, you really are only going to start courting after you've already gotten to know one another a bit. You've already developed this philia friendship, this authentic Christian friendship, right? You know a lot of things about the other person before you say, hey, you're not saying, hey, let's go have some fun together. You're saying, hey, I think there's something more here, and we should investigate whether we're supposed to get married. Like, It seems like you're going a long ways when you're talking in this kind of language, right? So it's going to be somebody who you already know quite a bit. This is obviously way before the step where you would say, will you marry me, right? But it's something way beyond simply, can we have dinner tonight? And I hardly know you, right? Way in time beyond that. Thankfully, you're in a community where it's very possible to spend time together and know each other on a fairly good level, probably with a number of people. You see, so you have to be paying attention in all of that. And also that's going to be messy. But courtship doesn't just happen, out of the blue. And then one other piece here, I want to give some clear structure to the discussion about courtship. I'm going to talk more about chastity next week, and specifically some principles of how to live it, right? And I'm sure that'll come up in our discussion tonight as well. But the phrase guard your heart came up a bit, and this would be under the title of chastity, practicing chastity in the way we would normally think about it, but also developing a healthy emotional detachment, which we'll talk about more as well tonight. Some pointers under that is to avoid excessive time alone, spent alone, and situations of temptation. To establish boundaries and stick to them. This is some advice I gave last week as well, but we'll go into more tonight, I'm sure. And then vocation. The issue of vocation is that if you're going to engage in courtship, both parties have clearly figured out with relative certainty that they're called to marriage, and they're not still guessing, well, I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to do X, Y, or Z. I'm supposed to be a priest and nun, etc. I don't know yet, I haven't figured it out yet. Now, God always has surprises in store for our lives, and they're messy, so I'm not saying this is a crystal clear thing, but you also don't go in with a high degree of uncertainty, certainly. And then the notion of discernment. You want to find someone to help you, preferably some kind of mentor, and have a serious attitude of prayer when you're engaging in courtship. You want to be just trying to discover God's will, and you want to establish some kind of what we call, it's a technical term, but moral certainty regarding a decision to move forward in the relationship towards marriage. Right? And then family. In this process, it's not necessary that in courtship that you meet, speaking from a guy's perspective, that I meet her family, within the first week of us beginning to court, right? It's not an absolute, and that could be virtually impossible, considering you might be a transplant to this area, she might be, etc. But rather than the relationship going on for a long time and then saying, well, I think we should get married, let's go meet the parents. That you want it to be in the reverse. You meet the parents much earlier in courtship. And then last point I want to make, just to sum this all up, I spoke last week about the modern scourge, the modern problem of fear of commitment that is hard for us because of a lot of things in our culture that, from where we come from, makes it harder for us to be people who make a commitment. Maybe you've noticed this. Maybe not, but I bet you have. I got a lot of heads going up and down last week when I talked about this. People really, I think, got or connected with what I was saying about it. Honorable courtship becomes a sure path for developing trust, and that's the fundamental central point that we're going to arrive at tonight in all of the things we talk about. I think that's fair to say. That we're really trying to develop trust between one another so that we can make a commitment that's lasting and that's solid. I'm going to give the microphone to Dave now. Hopefully it keeps working. And we're going to start doing, I think he's going to do his testimony next with his wife. Did I give you enough notice? I didn't really, because you want to connect with your...
Yeah, that's fine.
You got it.
Bunch of shit. Okay, so I wanted to give a couple disclaimers. While I do this, I'm going to text my wife and tell her that we're a little behind where I wanted to be, so she's not waiting. Okay, so just some disclaimers. A lot of what is said tonight is private opinion. My private opinion, Catherine's private opinion, my wife, Dino, his private opinion, and Kathy, Dino's wife, who we have failed miserably So just let her stand up here awkwardly. We should welcome Kathy with us tonight. Here's what's neat about Dino and Dave. Consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. Last name, consonant, vowel, 2 consonants, vowel. And we're Italian and bearded and awesome. And our wives' names are Catherine. Okay, so a lot of what is going to be said tonight is private opinion, not church authority. Please do not go anywhere and say, well, Dave said this is the only way that this could possibly ever happen, and that's what the church believes. Let's make it clear, a lot of what is said is private opinion, meaning you have to discern this yourself. You take this the same way you would from a mentor or an advisor or a spiritual director. You take it into consideration. The next one, we can't possibly tell you everything about relationships. It is not possible because of those circumstances that Dino mentioned. These are, as I say, principles. Okay? No one is an expert. We are not trying to tell you the absolute do's and don'ts. We are going, and this is why I want to Skype my wife in, we're going to just tell you our story. So that hopefully that you can apply this possibly to your relationship. Certainly not because we're perfect. Certainly not. Simply because we learn from others, from their good and their bad. I would suggest here, and this is exactly what Dino said, trust the wisdom of the church. We're giving you these guidelines, these principles to apply. Totally up to you. If you like going from bad relationship to bad relationship and getting too emotionally invested and too physically invested and giving your soul, having a horrible breakup, going on the rebound, doing it over and over and over again, keep doing it. We're trying to show you that there's a better option, and it is very countercultural, and it is very radical, and that's what one of the questions was about. We're going to get to that, and I love it. You have a choice, just as in all things, to do this. Let's be clear, too. Some of the videos, some of our just natural language is to use the word dating, and we kind of throw it around, and we kind of know what we mean. Let's be clear. Dates are not bad. Modern dating is this idea of just the two of us, void of the family, having fun, no commitment, all those things. That slide that was up. Okay, so that word is going to be used. Some of the people use it in videos. I just want to say that, courting couples go on dates. When you go to the movies, that's a date. That's totally fine within courtship. I mean, if you want to call it something else, whatever, that's fine. But what's mostly important there is that all the things that do happen in dating happen in courtship. The eros, the erotic love, this is not necessarily in a sexual way. This is the physical attraction you have. This is that warm fuzzy you get when they walk in the room. This is the breath that gets taken away. Totally good. But everything is ordered for the good of the other. Okay, this is lived out virtuously, not selfishly. This is martyrdom versus suicide. Okay? And before we get going with anything, you have to know that marriage doesn't start when you take marriage prep classes or you go on engaged encounter. It's now. So you should applaud yourselves, again, for being here. Because you are preparing yourself for whoever that person is that God has for you. And that is what is so incredible about these principles. Asking you to be virtuous and prayerful and discerning and open to God's will so that when He does bring that person to you, you're ready. You're prepared. And you're hoping that that other person is doing the same and that when He brings you together, ta-da! It works, right? Now, Dino had this same slide up last time, and I think it's only fair that I tell you a little bit about who this guy is. So I'm the director of the Young Adult Office and Campus Ministry, And many of you, maybe all of you, are involved in all the really cool things we do. When I was a kid, I was raised Catholic. I went to Benedictine College and left the church at Benedictine College and was gone and was anti-Catholic, big time. I've shared this. I then came back, never turned my back, and have been running towards him ever since. My wife, Catherine, we've been married almost 8 years. We have 4 children. We were 23. You know, prior to Catherine, I thought every girl I dated ever was it. She's the one. I just thought that. And then we broke up. And then, wait a second. She's the one, you know. And there was, even at the age of 23, a sense of, am I ever going to find her? I'm getting so old. Right? From the time I was 23 and we were single and started courting, I was a month into being 25. By the time I was 26, I had bought a house, several cars, and had a child, and was pregnant with the second. So when you're thinking, I'm so old, I'm never going to meet him or her, it can happen, and it can happen very quickly. So cool your jets. And then those are my degrees, which really don't matter at all. There's my family. That's what matters, no doubt. So I want to just talk a little bit about something that's vital for everybody, but ladies, I'm going to talk to you specifically. I'm just going to talk about a father's love. This is my oldest daughter, Lily Grace. I love her. She is very spunky, always has a smile on her face. She is such a servant to her siblings. She is a pleaser. She's a perfectionist. Her singing voice is angelic. She is so fun-loving. I love her. She has these really beautiful blue eyes. And it's funny, when she came out in the hospital, Catherine remembers hearing me from the other side of the room. We took her over, and we were, dealing with the umbilical cord, and, I was there holding her and watching her, and I was like, she looks like me, she looks like me. Catherine always tells that. It's like, how could God ever make this look good? Well, he did, and this little girl that changed my life forever. This is my second oldest daughter. Her name is Emma. And as sweet as she looks in that picture, she is just that sweet. I love Emma. She has so much energy, it never stops. Never stops. We bought one of those little inside aerobic trampolines because she needs it. Emma, go jump. But she puts that energy to such good use. She's so happy and so helpful. She is the best little mother, especially to our daughter Maria. This girl will play and play and play with her baby dolls all day long. She has incredibly, almost freakish strength. She's stronger pound for pound than anybody in this room. She was 2 and doing pull-ups, no lie. I love her. This is my little dude, Dave Jr. He is the coolest little dude around. He'll be 3 next week. He's not in school, but he's the coolest guy in school. He plays recess with the 1st and 2nd graders and scores goals on them in soccer. And I love this guy. He is very caring. He's a gentleman. He treats women, I think, the way that hopefully he sees me treating women, with respect and honor and all the things he does. And we almost lost him. He literally was born not breathing, had a heartbeat of 40, had to have a shot of epinephrine to the heart. He was shocked twice, put on a ventilator. And when he was 45 minutes outside of the womb, I saw him reach up with his little fingers and yank the vent tube out. 45 minutes old. From me to Dan, I saw it with my own 2 eyes in the NICU, and I knew this little dude is going to be just fine. They got Dave Denuzzo, they didn't know what they got. And this is my little baby, Maria. She is just as sweet as she looks. Those eyes, I think I said this to someone last night at Tuesdays, I stare at her eyes because they're just mesmerizing. And she is the sweetest little baby and just so fun-loving and in that crazy stage where she's into everything, and I love her. I love everything about her. What I'm sharing with you, I could go on and on and on and on. Do you know that our Heavenly Father, His love, like I try to perfect my love for my kids by just doing everything for them and with them in mind and with the goal of heaven in mind. And I don't. It's not a perfect love because I'm sinful. But our Heavenly Father isn't. And His love is never ending. Never ending. And it just goes on and on and on, and He could just say for days and years and eternity how He feels about you and the value you have for Him and this world. So, ladies, this isn't just to be cute. I mean, they are cute. This is so that, if you don't understand this concept of God's love for you, there's no purpose in you being here. You have to have this first. That He loves you enough to give you everything you need and could possibly want without even knowing that you want it. The greatest and the best. He wants to give you all of that. He wants you to say yes to His love. So do not forget that. You have to know that. Have to. Never, ever, ever settle for less than the best. Ever, ever, ever. Okay. We get pregnant. Find out we're having a daughter. Okay. I want a kind of little army of dudes, God, but all right. We'll do this. And I started calling a simple rule Daddy's rule. What is it? Daddy's rule, and it applies to you. It could apply very, very simply to you in courtship. 2 words. Very simple. No boys. People thought, oh, haha, that's funny, Dave. Big macho guy, and you don't want your daughters dating. Haha, that's funny. No, in fact, that's the rule. No boys. 0. None. We don't have time for them. What we have time for, when the time is right and God ordains it, a man will come into my daughter's lives. If that is their vocation. Lily's dead set on marrying Jesus, which I'm totally cool with. He may send a man into their lives. There's a difference between masculinity and boys. Okay, the opposite of masculinity is not femininity, it is childishness. We don't have time for boys. So ladies, when you're looking, wondering, hoping, eliminate the boys. Eliminate the boys. They won't work out. You deserve much better than boys. You deserve a man. Men, you are totally ready for this. You are totally ready to be the man that a woman needs. Don't kid yourself and think that you're not. You're never going to have every single thing in your life ready. It's never going to be perfect. And I can tell you, the ladies are waiting on you. There is no doubt they want to be married and have children. And they're ready for you to be ready and to act. So that's what hopefully we're going to get into a lot of tonight. Let me, and it's going to be a little awkward going back and forth, but I apologize. She should be waiting. Hopefully this works. Or not. Would you like to leave a video message? No, thanks. Hello? Hi, babe. Can you guys hear in the back? Can you talk a little bit?
Hello.
You hear okay? Sorry, for some reason it's not coming through the system. Okay, so babe, we are about 15 minutes behind. So let's condense. So this is my wife, Catherine. Some of you were able to meet her when she was in town at New Year's and Reservoir and so forth. But we courted. And it wasn't perfect, as I said. We want to just share our story of how we did it and a little bit of why. And I'm going to let Catherine start.
Okay, first, I have a question. Can I turn around so I can see that instead of you? You're handsome and all, but...
Oh no, I just killed the recorder. We are having major technical
Hi, Dina. How are you doing? Okay, now I can see the door. Okay. Hi, everyone. So, what I'd like to... Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'd like to start with talking about today is a little background on myself, because before me and Dave courted, I had a big conversion, and it's really a big part of the story. So, like many people, I had the high school sweetheart, starting, guard of the football team, Mr. 4.9, Mr. Everything, right? Good GPA, good resume, as I like to call it. And I fell in love, and I knew from a young age I was called to marriage. I wanted to be married, I wanted to have babies and lots of them, and I wanted a husband to have those babies. I think that was my biggest goal when I was younger. And I met this guy, and he had a good resume, and we have a good gene pool, so I was like, okay, this is the man for me. And ended up becoming not the best guy, was super controlling in lots of different ways. But what did I learn from my mom, who had not the best husband? You stick with them because you love them. So I stayed with them because I wanted to get married and have in my heart. So, I'll challenge you, Mr. God, you, and I will do what these missionaries do. Because they look happy. They just have joy, and I want that. So I'm going to stop trying to find a guy. I'm going to stop trying to get married, and I'm just going to learn to love you. I'm going to go to confession, and many of you know, after my life, that's a rather scary thing, but I did it. Went to confession, started praying, started learning the math, going to math. But, so, back a little bit of the story. So I'm driving down, means I have this throwdown. I'm like, I give up. I've tried everything, I'm tired, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm done. I don't know what to do. So you take the wheel. I'm done. If you make me happy, we'll see if you can do it. Kind of like a challenge. I didn't really think you would, but I'm like, I'll give it a good try. And so I pull into this house, and there's David, and he was one of the missionaries at the time, and he's like, hey, it's Carly's birthday, let's go to the party. And I'll always remember it, because I was in that same brown outfit, because remember I got stuck with the blizzard, so I was like kind of sticky, and I had the brown shirt on, and that one. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we said we're going to do this, so here we go. And that's the movie with the missionaries. And I think Dave's going to say something now.
It's pretty much the way it works. Gives me the green light. I don't know if that's what we talked about, babe, but... What Catherine failed to mention in there was that she told God... Did you just say this? See, sometimes I do tune you out, I'm sorry. Did you say that you were going to just stop? Did you mention that part?
Yes.
Okay. How stupid of me. That's one of the 3 things that you can always say as a husband. So, at this point, I'm on a dating fast as a focused missionary, and I'm just not interested in a relationship. And so Catherine came home and just said, hey, we're going, want to go? And I was over at the girl's house, and she said, sure. And I obviously don't know what's going on, but at that moment, and throughout the movie, and for like every day after that, I just needed to be with her. And I was beyond drawn to her. And it's hard to explain it after the fact, but I was, at this point, I was ready. Is that what I was supposed to say?
No.
I knew this was going to happen.
Well, I'm sorry. Don't listen to him. So, here we are. We're not supposed to be dating. I am just sworn off God because I have been spending the last 4 years of my life trying to get square pegs fit in a round hole. I knew what kind of guy I wanted, and I'd be like, well, I can make it work. So I was like, I'm just not going to do it anymore. But there's this guy Dave, and we had known each other for a while. We had been in Bible studies. We had gone to parties together. We were in the
notes.
I wrote them out.
Well, at some point in there, Catherine asked me, she said, what changed?
No.
No. See, she wanted me to script this, and I said, no, don't script it.
Well, I wondered if you don't follow it, so I will continue.
I love you.
So then we went to, see, this is where girls are spaghetti. We remember the details. So then what I did is I took all the lessons from my ex, and I was different. And those things were, I knew what type of man I wanted. I wanted a man who was good with kids, who was hanging out with my family, who my friends liked. So I would go and put him through these tests. Right? I want a guy who's good with kids, so I took him to Chuck E. Cheese's. What better test? How's this man going to handle Chuck E. Cheese's with my two nephews, right? And of course, he did a great job. And then I would take him to my friends, and I would say, okay, we're all going to go out to eat with this guy. Tell me honestly how you feel. And I did that because I wanted to know. My friends really love me. And I want someone who they know is good for me. And so I would ask them, what do you think about him? And every time I met someone, they'd be like, you got to marry that guy. He's great. So I always knew that was good. And my nephews really cared about him, and all those things were good. But he did the same to me. I remember one time we went to Virginia. He literally bought the ticket and said, we're going to go meet my cousin Diana. She's like my sister. If she doesn't like you, this isn't going to work. But at least I knew. There's a difference in not playing games. And I would say that's the one thing that me and David did not do in our courting that I would recommend everyone, is that we didn't play games. We just were like, this is how it is. This is who I am. I even took him to see my crazy family. Like my aunts and uncles and my grandparents are like Jerry Springer crazy. Like,
It's true.
and I was like, you're living into this family, you should probably see that before you sign the deal, because this is going to be part of your team with your kids. Like, no. And so he did. Spent that time, he went down, and there was just continually was these good, we kept getting these good feelings from it. These good affirmations of what we were doing. So then, now this is like November, and me and him and some of the missionaries go out to this ranch, just to spend some time four-wheeling, and me and Dave go on another one of those talks, those walks and talks, and this time he said, we got in an argument, and he said, Catherine, I just don't know if I love you, if I want to marry you, or if I want to be married. Like, do I want to marry you, Catherine? Or do I just like the idea of being married? And when he told me that, a lot of people would have cried and been hurt, but I had given it up to God so early on in the relationship that I knew we were called to be together. I knew he needed his time, and he had to believe it, because I didn't tell him no. I didn't challenge him. I said, okay, that's what you need. You let me know when you're ready. And it was like 10 hours. He was like, yeah, I want to marry you.
See, I actually knew that I wanted to marry her, but I was scared. I pretty much just had to get my big boy pants on and man up. And then we were engaged within a month.
And so after we had this talk, I think what kind of ties everything together is that me and David had this talk, and do I want to marry you, and we worked through it, and then I could tell he was getting closer, like he was doing certain things and to asking me to marry him. But I had one final question that I needed answered for myself, and that was,
Thanks for telling my story. I love you.
I love you.